Hello, good afternoon. My name's Philip and I'm part of the team at Salisbury Library, and I'm here for this afternoon's tea and chat. So welcome to you all on this lovely afternoon. I've got some news for you about the library. I've got some poems that reflect on friendship and love. We've got some prose from the prison librarian at Earlstoke. And also we've got a little bit of natural history of Selboorne, so we've got plenty of things to share with you. I just wanted to tell you first of all about our book chat groups, which are on Facebook. So the Salisbury and Wilton Library book chat group, there's one in Wiltshire and Chipney, and these are all friendly groups that get together and talk about books and reading and libraries and share book reviews, and they're quite humorous, so they're worth joining. So that's the Salisbury and Wilton Library book chat group, and there's one at Melksham, Chippenham and Warminster as well, and Calm. I also want to tell you about World Book Night. This takes place on the 23rd of April, and it's free events with the Reading Agency and the British Library. So if you just go to the Reading Agency site, you can log on to them. And between 6 and 7 on Friday nights, you can see Kazuru Isaguru in conversation with Kate Moss. 7 and 8 is a reading hour, and then between 8 and 9, the World Book Night presents Books to Make You Smile, and that's hosted by Sandy Toxvig. And so these are all free, and they take place on Friday night as part of the World Book Night event. So that's something to look forward to. Okay, so let's start with some poems about friendship. So the first poem I've got is called, is by an old favourite of ours, Thomas Hardy, and this poem is called So Various. You may have met a man, quite young, a brisk-eyed youth and highly strung, one who desires and inner fires moved him as wires. And you may have met one, as stiff and old, if not in years of manner cold, who seemed as stone and never had known of mirth or moan. And there may have crossed your path a lover, in whose clear depths you could discover a staunch, robust and tender trust through storm and gust. You may also have known one fickle, whose fancies changed as the silver sickle of yonder moon, which shaped so soon to demillume. You entertained a person once, whom you internally deemed a dunce. As he sat in view, just facing you, you saw him through. You came to know a learned seer, of who you read the surface mere. Your soul quite sank, brain of such rank, dubbed yours a blank. Anon you quizzed a man of sadness, who never could have known true gladness. Just for a whim you pitied him in his sore trim. You journeyed with a man so glad, you never could conceive him sad. He proved to be indubitably good company. You lit on an adventurous slow man, who said you need be feared by no man, that his slack deeds and sloth must needs produce but weeds. A man of enterprise, shrewd and shrift, who never suffered affairs to drift. You eyed for a time, just in his prime, and judged he might climb. You smoked beside one who forgot all that you said, or grasped it not. Quite a poor thing, not worth the sting, by satirizing. Next year you nearly lost forever goodwill from one who forgets slights nether, and with unease felt you must seize occasion to please. Now all these specimens of man, so various in their pith and plan, curious to say, were one man, yea, I was all they. So what I love about that poem from Thomas Hardy is that he's talking about obviously all the people he's met in the past, and they all turn out to be him. And I think that we've all met people, and on first meeting we may not have perhaps gone on over the rind of the stick, or perhaps not liked them as much as we should. And I just think it's quite a nice way of perhaps not judging people on their first meeting. So I quite like that poem. That's So Various by Thomas Hardy. Now, as the restrictions slowly ease, we may have a little bit more merrymaking going on, restrained obviously. And another Thomas Hardy poem that I've chosen is A Merrymaking in Question. And this is when you really remember lovely times that you've had with your friends. And this doesn't change over hundreds of years, and I think this poem shows that. A Merrymaking in Question by Thomas Hardy. I will get a new string for my fiddle and call to the neighbours to come, and partners shall dance down the middle until the old pewter wares hum, and we'll sip the mead, cider and rum. From the night came the oddest of answers, a hollow wind like a bassoon, and headstones all ranged up as dancers, and cypresses droning a croon, and gargoyles that mouthed to the tune. I love that image of the gargoyles on the church mouthing to the tunes that are taking place nearby. I think that's lovely. So that was A Merrymaking in Question by Thomas Hardy. Okay, so as well as poems, you know, we sometimes have prose, and today I thought we would have an extract from an article that our prison librarian, Kelly Fuller, wrote for Big Issue, and this appeared a month ago, and she is the librarian at Her Majesty's Prison at Elstoke, and she's just telling us about her year in lockdown, and I found it really interesting, and I hope you do too. So she says, for most of March 2020, we've been taking extra precautions, wiping down stock and surfaces, washing our hands until they cracked, and offering a squirt of specially permitted hand sanitizer to anyone who came through the library door. The notice to close and stay home wasn't a shock, but it was a surprise that it had come so quickly. We'd left the library on Friday, fully intending to open up again on the Monday. My first thought was, how do we get back in and keep the library provision going? The thought of being banged up in your prison cell without warning, without anything to do, and without any idea as to when the situation might change was seriously concerning for the mental health of the prison population, a demographic already known to be severely at risk. After several drafts of risk assessment, a newly designed service plan, and with the approval of multiple senior figures, our lockdown library service began less than a month later, on April the 16th. Twice a week, we circumnavigate the prison with a trolley, visiting each wing in the morning to collect request forms and returns. All returns are then quarantined for a minimum of 72 hours. We then read the request forms and make up named labelled bundles to be delivered later that day. Men can borrow books, DVDs, music CDs and audiobooks. The trolley comes out again to cart all the loans back to the wings to be handed out to individuals by wing officers. We're not allowed to visit individual cells, and we only hand items through the main wing door to officers. This was only ever intended to be a temporary service, and here we still are a year later. We've delivered in 32 degrees C blazing sun, -3 degrees C frost, howling wind and pouring rain. Being a prison librarian is not glamorous, and waterproof trousers are essential. DVDs have always been traditionally most popular, but as time gone on, book issues are almost equaling film requests. Popular books include Gentleman in Moscow by Emma Twelves, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and The St Mary's Chronicles by Jodie Taylor. In order to avoid disappointment, we ask our customers not to be too specific, but to ask for an action book or a sci-fi book. The surprise element both helps us to make the most of our not huge stock, but also to expand the taste of our customers. Moving from face-to-face to correspondence only is a big change, but one that hasn't excluded meaningful conversations. We now have pen pals instead. Some of our best customers are ones we've never met, whether it's because they've transferred in after March 2020 or they never thought to try the library before then. It's an odd feeling to recognise someone's handwriting and know their taste in books, but now have no idea what they look like. Scribbled notes thank us for our choices and our time and tell us how important the library service has been for their well-being. Prior to lockdown, the library was popular, but there were always those who would visit more to socialise with each other than to borrow, which isn't always a bad thing. But now every single interaction we have with a borrower or information seeker who needs our time and our help and our resources. It's not easy. We don't have nearly as much time as we'd like to due to restrictions. We have to work alone. There are only 2 prison library staff, and we've met in person twice since last March instead of seeing one another nearly every day. We can't make any displays. We can't spend 10 minutes chatting to someone about what their local library can offer them once they're released. We can't offer a calm space, shelves of stock, and half an hour away from the prison regime. Our customers are often demotivated and bored and frustrated, just like all of us on the outside. All the more reason to press on, stay positive, and maintain the library service to the best of our ability. We've been lucky enough to receive some wonderful donations, and the Prison Reading Group charity have helped to continue our existing book group. The book group have enjoyed The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole by Sue Townsend and Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. We've shadowed the Carnegie and Kent Greenaway Awards, and we've great plans to introduce the new offerings from Storybook Dads and promote the 2021 Reading Ahead 6-Book Challenge. We want to encourage people to join their local library when they leave prison and let them know all the help and support there is out there, as well as continuing to read. And of course, we want to reopen as soon as for our customers, as soon as it's safe to do so. Public libraries aim to be the centre of the community, and our aim as part of a prison community is no different. So that piece was by Kelly Fuller, and she's the librarian at Earlstoke Prison, and that was published in the big issue in March 2021. I thought it was an excellent article, and if you want to read it again or look at it in full, then I think we do have the big issue as part of our e-book collection, e-magazine collection, so you can get it. So thank you, Kelly, for that insight into her daily work. Okay, so of course there is a very famous poem about a jail, but I'm not going to read that one because we're meant to be on friendship and love. So, but I am going to read one by Oscar Wilde, and this is called Her Voice. The wild bee reels from bough to bough, with his furry coat and his gauzy wing, now in a lily cup, and now setting a jacinth bell a-swing in his wandering. Sit closer, love, it was here I trow, I made that vow. And that was Her Voice by Oscar Wilde. And another poem we have here, this is from Emily Bronte, and this is about love and friendship. Love is like the wild rose briar, friendship like the holly tree. The holly is dark when the rose briar blooms, but which will bloom most constantly? The wild rose briar is sweet in spring, its summer blossoms scent the air. Yet wait till winter comes again, and who will cool the wild brave fair? Then scorn the silly rose wreath now, and deck thee with the holly's sheen, that when December blights thy brow, he still may leave thy garland green. And that was Love and Friendship by Emily Bronte. I thought it was lovely, that was. Okay, so this time of year, it's a wonderful time of year, isn't it? It's spring and everything's starting to look lovely and green and wonderful. And on Easter Sunday, before the snow we had, a couple of months some of us had, I saw our first 3 swallows of the year, but I haven't seen any since. So I thought I might read something about swallows, and of course Gilbert White, who wrote the Natural History of Selbourne, he had a diary and lots of letters, and he followed it through the year, and he was of the opinion that swallows didn't migrate, and he thought, or expanded the opinion, that they either went into rivers or ponds, or they lived in chimneys. And here is a letter that he wrote in 1774, sharing some of those, slightly odd theories. The house swallow, or chimney swallow, is undoubtedly the first comer of all the British hirundines, and appears in general on about the 13th of April, as I've remarked from many years' observation. Not but now and then a struggler is seen much earlier, and in particular when I was a boy I observed a swallow for a whole day together on a sunny, warm Shrove Tuesday, which day could not fall out later than the middle of March and often happened early in February. It's worth remarking these birds are seen first about lakes and mill ponds, and it's also very particular that if these early visitors happen to find frost and snow, as with the case of the two dreadful springs of 1770 and 1771, they immediately withdraw for a time. A circumstance this much more in favour of hiding than migration, since it is much more probable that a bird should retire to its hibernacalium just at hand than return for a week or two only to warmer latitudes. The swallow, though called the chimney swallow, by no means builds altogether in chimneys, but often within barns and outhouses against the rafters. In Sweden she builds in barns and is called the barn swallow. Besides, in the warmer parts of Europe there are no chimneys to houses except those that are English built. In these countries she constructs her nest in porches and gateways, galleries and open halls. Here and there a bird may affect some odd peculiar place. We have known a swallow build down the shaft of an old well through which chalk had been formerly drawn up for the purpose of manure, but generally the swallows breed in chimneys and loves to haunt these stacks where there is a constant fire, no doubt for the sake of warmth. And the footnote says that the country chimneys of White's day were capacious and were used for smoking and curing bacon and to accommodate the great smoke from the bulky fires of wood, hedge trimmings and turf. Modern chimneys are too small to provide flying space for swallows, which today resort almost entirely to farm buildings, which are now more plentiful than in White's time. And it carries on, not that the swallow can subsist in the immediate shaft where there is a fire, but prefers one adjoining to that of the kitchen, and disregards the perpetual smoke of that funnel, as often observed with some degree of wonder. So you can see that Gilbert White's making his observations about where a bird and its behaviour based on where he often sees the birds, and that's flying around chimneys and doorways. And of course, obviously we now know that swallows do migrate and they don't just disappear into lakes and ponds, which of course they're often over in the spring and summer because of the flies and insects that are over the water. So I thought that was really quite quaint, and next time you see a swallow, perhaps you might think of Gilbert White and imagine the swallow going down into a pond or hibernating in a chimney. Okay, back to our poems of friendship and love, and the next poem I've got is called Comrades 4 by Claude Mackay, and it goes, Dear comrades, my heart is always true, and ever I shall remember you. We all joined together joined we four, and I have been first to pass through open door. We four drilled together drilled we all, and I've been the first to flee from the life of gall. We parted, dear comrades, we parted all in tears, and each went his own way to shoulder life's sad cares. O comrades, my comrades, what is thy lasting gain, but all to rough to tempest, a heart of unmixed pain. My comrades, love comrades, I hear your bitter cry, but life's pain will end, boys, will end yet, by and by. And of course it's quite sad, that one. Obviously it's about when people join up the forces, and obviously you do develop a special sort of friendship in a team or in an armed force setting, or any sort of a sporting team, or a team where you work together with each other, and it's a different kind of friendship, isn't it? And I think one of the things we'll miss, I know I miss, is playing sport with a group of people, and hopefully we can go back to that soon. Okay, so my final poem today is short, but it's Time to Talk by Robert Frost. When a friend calls to me from the road and slows his horse to a meaning walk, I don't stand still and look around on all the hills I haven't hoed, and shout from where I am, what is it? No, not as there is a time to talk. I thrust my hoe in the mellow ground, blade end up and 5 foot tall, and plod, I go up to the stone wall for a friendly visit. That was A Time to Talk from Robert Frost. I think for those of us who work in libraries and those of you who work the public, I think one thing we always try and remember is that that person who perhaps wants to talk to us, you know, it might be inconvenient, but we might be the only people they speak to in that day, the only conversation, and I think we always have to remember that and try and be empathetic to people. And I like that poem. It's always good to put aside a little bit of time, if you can, to have a chat with someone. Okay, I have got time for an extra one that I discovered the other day that I thought was quite funny. It's not really related to friends and love, but I thought it was quite nice, and it was by John Keats, and it's called A Naughty Boy. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He ran away to Scotland, the people for to see. Then he found that the ground was as hard, that a yard was as long, that a song was as merry, that a cherry was as red, that lead was as weighty, that fourscore was as 80, that a door was as wooden as in England. So he stood in his shoes, and he wandered and he wandered. He stood in his shoes, and he wandered. So there we are. So that naughty boy, the grass wasn't always greener on the other side. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the selection of poetry and prose that we've put together today. You will be able to look at this later on, or go back and check the titles on when it's added to the YouTube channel. And I think Basil will be here in a fortnight's time with another teen chat. Just to let you know that a lot of our libraries now, including the larger libraries, including Salisbury, Wilton and Downton, are now available for browsing. So you can go back in and select your books, choose your own books, and you can use the computers. And I know the library staff will be very much looking forward to seeing you as we slowly ease the restrictions as part of the government's roadmap. So in the meantime, I'll wish you a happy afternoon, and I hope to see some of you in the library very soon. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye.